Happy Wednesday, everybody. Yeah, halfway through the week. Lousy day outside. If you're watching in the United States, that means nothing to you. If you're watching in the UK, it ain't great. Now, you know him, and I'm going to solve some of his love problems today. I am going to, through the goodness of my heart, through the generosity of my spirit, I'm going to help this man today. He has no idea how, but by the end of the next half hour, I don't want to oversell it, but I think he's going to be forever in my debt. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him, you love him. He's the king of New Malden, Neil Longie.
And precisely what love problems do I need solving, Mr. Kane?
This is it. This is it. You don't realize, but when our first guest finally gets here,
bam. Can I ask you a favour? Can you take me off for 1 minute because I've got to go and get my glasses?
You can't. Well, we can see you. Oh no, it doesn't matter. Right. Wow. I'm hoping we've got, although it should be here by now, so in which case all of this could be complete pants. Winner of the best matchmaking agency in London and the Southeast. Oh yeah. Love. Not for me, but for Neil. That's what I thought we did. But no sign of the guest, which means their PR company is going to get a right kicking. How is everybody today? While I'm waiting, last night I watched the Chris Rock special. I'm a big Chris Rock fan. I think his delivery, his timing, his bravery is fantastic. And I haven't finished it yet because I was laughing so hard I had to keep stopping. Let's see if he's got his bins on. He's got his bins on. I was just saying that last night I watched the Chris Rock special. Oh my God. Like I was dying from it. I had to stop pausing it because I was laughing so hard.
I love Chris Rock. I think he's a genius. They dusted his face after the Will Smith incident and found fresh prints. He's taken me out. Right, he's left me alone for that.
Here's the thing. Chris Rock, absolutely. And he does not hold back. And basically, he says everything that millions and millions, to quote Dwayne Johnson, the millions and millions are thinking, but are too scared. And he just goes for it. And he goes into some really difficult areas.
If it's done tastefully and properly, it can be brilliant. This is the power of comedy. You know, # never a truer word said in jest. I greatly respect anyone that does comedy, and I think Chris Rock is absolutely fantastic. Well, Julie Voice, hi, I'm listening today from an outside hot tub at a spa with my bestie. We've been rubbed down, oiled, wrapped in seaweed. I think they're going to baste me over a low light until mid-August. Lovely, Julie, lovely.
She sounds like sushi.
She
sounds like a kind of little sushi roll. What would you like?
I sent you the merchandise,
I'll have
Julie.
the Julie Voice, please, and some, just the miso soup. I'm not that hungry. That'd be fine for me. That'll do. Here's the thing. That Chris Rock, this special comes from Baltimore. And you're thinking, well, what's this got to do with mental health? Everything. It's got everything to do with mental health. It's a special. It's in Baltimore. Predominantly black audience. Huge theater. Huge theater. Predominantly black audience. So he can go into areas that we as white folk, we can't.
Exactly.
Because we can't, okay? And so, for example, he rips apart Meghan Markle.
Really?
We do that. You can imagine the consequences, no matter what we may think of her as a person, but you can always play the racist card. You know, you've got it up your sleeve. You can play it. You can be a horrible person. Anybody says anything, oh, you're racist. No, I don't care. It's irrelevant. You're just a horrible person. I'm talking about generally. But he just goes for it. He doesn't care. And the audience, and here's the thing. Here's what I call the litmus test. The audience are loving it. And it's hitting them hard.
Yeah,
it's hitting them.
Yes, because it gives them a voice. It's the stuff they've never been allowed to say, and you don't say in polite society. And comedians can do that. And if it's the right audience with the right people, they can touch a nerve in a really, really good way. I think it's a fantastic art. I really do.
The thing about it,
I think it's part of social change. I really do.
What is really interesting, and I was watching the great Ben Shapiro talk about it before I watched this show, on his show Daily Wire, and the comedians I'm talking about, and Karen's coming into her studio, so we'll join her in a second.
Sure.
But I want to finish this point. Then we can come back to it in the future when other people have watched it, because I think it only landed yesterday or the day before, possibly yesterday. The comedians, I'm not talking about the places, the little local pubs. I'm talking about the big major comedians, the Dave Chappelle's, the Chris Rocks, etc., are finally saying, oh, she's gone again, finally saying, screw this woke shit. Enough with this. Enough with this now. Enough. We've had enough. And they are leading this swing of the let's see if she's going to sit still for 2 minutes. This would be really great.
As we all can. It just takes the guts to say what you really feel and speak the truth.
You and I, as outspoken as I don't care, because I've got to that time in my life, I don't care, right? But if I did it, you did it, well, maybe the world would end, maybe it wouldn't. He does it. He has a voice. Let's bring on out first. Let's bring on out first.
Jackie Mason could tell Jewish jokes, couldn't he?
Precisely so. Somebody
Dave
else
Allen could tell Catholic jokes.
Somebody else who wasn't Jackie Mason. People say, well, no, because Jackie Mason was Jewish. So he can tell these jokes. And I'm dying at it because it's so true and it's so funny. You got somebody else like Bernard Manning do it. I want to go up and slap him. Let's bring on our first guest, because it's a packed show today. But I just really...
I've got to tell you a story about wokeness later on the show, by the way, because something annoyed me today and I've got to share it with
Boy
you.
Wonder. Here she is, Karen Mooney.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Russ.
That's my pleasure. And Neil, my pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
Hello, Karen.
Hello.
And thank you for sitting still. Thank you for sitting still. You were in and out like a fiddler's elbow there.
Sorry.
You were in and out. I thought, well, I'll wait until she's going to sit down, then we'll bring her in. Right. Karen Mooney, winner best matchmaking agency in London and the Southeast. Tell us all about yourself. What are you up to? What are you doing?
Because Russ says you're going to sort out all my love life problems.
Yeah, I want you. You're
said that before you came on.
Hang on. Can I play the? Can I play the? Karen, can I play? Karen, let me play the theme. I don't think she can hear us. Karen, stop. Can we play the theme from Mission Impossible? Because I want you to sort out Neil's love life.
Okay.
Your mission, Karen Mooney. Should you want to take it, sort out Neil Long. Okay, off you go.
I wish you well, because someone once nominated me for Trini and Susanna because they thought quite correctly I had no fashion sense. And even Trini and Susanna turned me down. So if they can't deal with me...
Neil, I got to tell you, and Karen, this is a fact, and I don't care who knows it. I started broadcasting in 1984. I've stopped 2 broadcasts in my life, 2 interviews in my life. One was a vegan who was in the men's radio station studio and was so out of control, his PR woman was looking at me and said, I thought we were just going to eat nice vegan cakes. And I went, yeah, that would have been good. So I threw him out. And the only other interview I ever stopped in my life was Trini and Susanna. Let's move on. Right, Karen, what do you do?
See, you've won awards for this, so you must be really good at this. Tell us all about that.
Well, hopefully we're quite good. I started Sarah Eden when I was in my 20s. We'll be 35 years old this September. And... there was nothing like it. We were, there was nothing like it really. I started it for single professionals like myself who couldn't meet the right sort of people. We went to if you were a girl, you went to a wine bar, a guy would come and chat you up and you'd think, oh no, I didn't really fancy him. But so I had nothing to lose. I handed in my notice and I said, I really had no idea. I knew nothing about the industry really. Thousands of marriages later, thousands of babies later.
So you've been married thousands of times?
Sorry?
You've been married thousands of times, you're saying?
No, not thousands of times, but thousands of marriages.
Right. Needs to be very clear, Karen, please.
What have you hit on that most of the other dating apps are missing? What are you doing that's different?
We're not a dating app, you see. All our members come to see us.
Agency.
That's all right. We've got an office in Westminster and one in Windsor. And they come along. They're all financially secure professionals or retired professionals. And they want to meet somebody. Some of the older ones just want to meet somebody for a companion, you know. But most people want to meet somebody for a long-term relationship. All our ladies look like their photographs. We're careful who we take on. If we think somebody, we can't match somebody, we won't take them on. We can't help very large
What
people.
are the criteria, Karen Mooney, that you look at them and go, ooh, I don't think so?
Well, they have to be realistic in their expectations. So when you come along, you bring 3 forms of ID, you sign a confidentiality contract, and then we will make a selection of profiles of ladies, and then we think will be suitable for you, and you go through and select from there.
Well, just putting myself forward here, Karen Mooney. Is Eva Green, the French actress, one of your clients?
I couldn't tell you that, could I? Confidentiality is paramount.
So you've got a choice of 2 to sort me out. You can have either Eva Green, the French beautiful actress, or Monica Bellucci, the Italian actress. That's kind of your choice there. That's where we're going.
This must be kind of the problem, because people have such a wish list. I read the bio about you, and it's like you're avoiding the whole people have got this, and this. And you've kind of circumvented that quite well, I think. Tell us more.
Yeah, no, you can't have an ideal wish list. There are certain things you want in a partner, you know, and that's
a pulse in my case.
Sorry?
A pulse in my
pulse,
case.
yes, that helps, doesn't it?
I can only apologise, Karen.
No, shut up. I can work. I'm just setting the bar low. I'm realistic, you know.
Yeah.
On you go.
Well, so all our people are who they say they are. They're all financially secure, and they're all looking for ideally a long-term relationship.
How do you know they're financially secure? Serious question. How do you know they're financially secure? Do they have to bring in
we do quite a lot of
statement or
checking on
something?
them, and there's lots you can find out now on the internet.
Okay.
And they come along to us anyway, because they want to meet somebody who's similar. They settle down with. And interestingly enough, during the pandemic, it was really lovely because our oldest client now is 89. And
enthusiastic.
We were teaching people how to date on WhatsApp and Zoom and things. And when they went out for their hourly walk or whatever, they could take their phone with them and they could walk together. So it's made people think about life. It's made people think about how important it is to enjoy life and make the most of what you got left.
Damn right. Damn straight. This is not a dress rehearsal, Karen. It's the real thing.
It is, absolutely.
And it's very short, and you're here and you're gone, and that's it.
Can I ask a devil's advocate question here?
Off you go, boy.
Through all the experiences, good and bad, we've had in relationships, we kind of, I kind of see it, I could be wrong, as aiming for a target, and that one goes way to the left. So then it goes way to the right, and you get closer and closer to the ball with each one. Surely the experiences we've had in relationships would influence the kind of one we want next time round. Good and point. Surely that is a kind of a wish list. Is that fair to say?
But we're there to guide you as well. I mean, men are much more visual than women. Okay, I can sell an interesting man to a woman. You try and sell an interesting woman to a man. No, they look at the photographs first.
Well, yeah.
Oh, lies, damn lies. I'm not like
kind of, yeah. Well, I don't want to end up with Nicola Sturgeon. She might be fascinating. But
and in other news, the Pope is Catholics and Catholic and bears.
I'm sure Irene Handel Irene Handel was fascinating. I don't want to wake up next to her. Thank you.
No, exactly.
Just pointing it out.
Yeah. You men are more superficial than us women.
Of course, we're delightfully superficial. That is what marks us out. We admit it and we embrace it, and we don't care.
But I wouldn't have an agency without you, would I?
No, you wouldn't. No, you blooming well wouldn't. Here's an interesting point that was raised by one of our viewers, listeners all over the world. Is this primarily? I'm guessing you're like your demographic is 40 plus, something like that, probably 30 plus.
Mid-30s plus. I mean, the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s are very busy age groups for us. Yeah.
Wowza. Yeah, I get that, because people die or people get divorced and they don't want to be lonely. Why should they? And why should they? We once had a young producer, and I want to run this by you, Karen Mooney. we had a young producer in the early 20s, and he couldn't get a date. And he was always like in wine bars or clubs. So I said, well, why don't you just walk up to a girl and say hi, like the old fashioned way. Hello, I'm whatever his name was. But this floored me. And I don't know if you know this, Neil, but Karen probably would, because she's an expert. He went, well, you can't do that. And I said, but you're standing in a bar. You're at the bar. You just smile and say hello. And, no, you can't do that. You've got to do it online. I said, but you're standing right next to her. No,
exactly.
You can't do it. You mustn't speak to anybody. What a load of crap.
Why?
But that's how it is.
Why? Because people might get the wrong idea.
Yeah, you can't do it. I was stunned. I was stunned about this. Stunned.
Well, yeah, I am too, really. I mean, if you see somebody you like, just start a conversation.
Precisely,
You don't have to
what's the best way to start a conversation with someone you like? Because hard as it is to believe, with a super confident, rippling hunk of stud muffin like me, and a soul.
Yeah.
And a soul
I don't know how Hatti Suvari contains herself every Wednesday afternoon. I don't know how she does it.
And I might add a soul so full of love and poetry. I have on occasion been known to get a bit tongue-tied if I'm around someone I fancy.
Yeah. Really? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's because you get nervous, isn't it? Because you're scared in case you make a mistake or something.
Me and Nigella Lawson.
Just pick up. Just think of something. Funny. Just think of something that Just say, this is a nice venue, isn't it? And like your dress, or just something.
I don't think you can say that anymore. Can you say that anymore?
Can you?
I'm serious question. I don't know. Apparently, that's. Are you not molesting? Hello, you've got a nice dress. Oh, slap! I'm reporting you. You're cancelled.
I don't think there's anything wrong with complimenting someone on their clothes. Commenting on what's inside them might be
really
inappropriate.
Depends who it
that's
is.
Different. That's really different.
No, say that colour really suits you. Blue makes your eyes even bluer. No, that's a bit corny, isn't it? No, but just, or isn't it a nice day, or
What, your teeth are like stars; they come out at night. Well, that kind of thing.
No, that
no. Do you know? Don't mind me saying, but your teeth are like the Spice Girls. They've all gone in different directions and all different colours.
And one of them's ginger.
One of them's ginger.
That's very good, actually.
Thank you. See,
I'm having a bit of difficulty hearing you. It's not very loud.
What is it not? Have you got your earphones in?
No.
Why not?
I'll speak up then.
No, don't speak up. Put your earphones in. That's the way we're meant to do it.
I know. I should have put my earphones in, shouldn't I?
I sent loads of instructions to your PR.
So, thousands of marriages, thousands of babies. How many have you got on your books at any one time? I mean, you've been doing it a while, quite a lot, I would have thought.
Yeah, it is very difficult. I mean, we've got loads, lots of people.
Here's an interesting thing.
Well, no personalities as well. We've got.
Let me ask you this, Karen Mooney. Let me ask you this. One of our regular viewers is the gorgeous Françoise Pascal.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
Who was and she's a beautiful soul. Was without doubt one of the most beautiful women on the planet. No ifs, no buts. Yeah. I wonder how anyone summoned up the courage to go up to her and go, "Hello, Françoise," and just start a conversation. And it's often been my case, and Françoise, I'd love your feedback on this, that sometimes you're in a room and the most beautiful woman, no one's talking to her because everyone is like too nervous. I'm talking about back in the day when I had a life, that too nervous. And I would just go up because they're on their own, because everyone else is going to go, they think, you're just going to be told to get lost. Françoise Pascal is a fantastic example of that.
Yeah. I agree. If women are too attractive, men are sometimes scared to approach them. When I first started, Sarah Eden, one of the we had like a launch party, and the press came along, and they were really surprised at how attractive the men and women were.
Yeah, sure.
But
Quasimodo.
by joining Sarah Eden, it gave them a reason to speak to each other.
Exactly, an icebreaker, and I think that's all people need, because once you get into a little bit of rapport with someone, and you can learn rapport skills as well. Rapport skills are things that can be learned by the individual.
Can they? No, I don't. Ooh, that's like
you
teach someone to have a personality. I don't think they can.
No, you can. I think so.
Julie Boyd,
can I ask you a question? There was a big thing on the internet probably going into the 2000s. What was his name? Neil Strauss, and he wrote a book called The Game. All right, and there were people before him, and it became known on the internet as the seduction community. Ross Jeffries, people like that. So, and the general vibe of that was, well, hang on, it was the women attracted, apparently, to the bad boys, and that because they find it exciting. Why would they do that? Because bad boys don't give a shit, excuse my language. They do what they want. They make up their own set of rules. They're essentially empowered, and women find that sexy. Well, bear with me here. I need to get to the end of this, otherwise it'll sound awfully sexist and stereotypical. On the other side of it, you've got the nice guy who's reliable, great husband material, but boring. This is illustrated really well in the Netflix series Sex/Life. Okay, if you've seen that, you'll know exactly what I mean. And what these people were saying was blend the two, so you can have the traits of a bad boy, make up your own rules, be exciting, but at the same time not hurt women, which the bad boy would, of course, eventually do. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's ideal. I mean, you know, the ideal relationship is you're independent within the relationship, but you need to have fun together too. So I think a bit of naughtiness and a bit of niceness go very well together. But I think when you're distracting me now. When you're young, I think you're also probably attracted to some of the bad boys. But I think as we all get older, we really don't want bad boys. We want somebody we can go old and grey with and enjoy life with and laugh with, have fun with.
Yeah.
There's also, may I just balance the scales here? There's a lot of bad girls out there. Trust me. Trust me.
And you haven't introduced me to any of them, Russell.
Well, I should imagine they're all grandmothers by now. But dear God, back in the day, jeez.
Back in the day.
But they were, you know.
The Victorian era was a heady time.
But the point about it is, though, and you're not allowed to say this anymore, but it was perfectly all right for you both to be bad and have a lot of fun and say cheerio. You know, you had no intention of walking up the aisle, pardon the expression, with them. But, you know.
Is it okay if people just want casual flings, in your opinion?
Well, when you're younger, I suppose. But I think as we get older, and I think that's not. No, I think you need to get to know somebody first. I believe, anyway. You need to, you know.
I believe that too, and I think that's sensible. No matter how much naughtiness you want, it is very sensible to get to know someone first, because once you're in that sort of intimate stage of the relationship, it's a bit too late. If you like,
it changes the dynamics completely.
It does. It completely changes the dynamics. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Really interesting. I read a lot of relationship
we've got Francoise Pascal's. I'm going to pop you up here, Karen Mooney.
Oh, hello.
There we go. And I'm going to read out. In fact, Neil's going to read out Francoise.
I did not have many, says Francoise, because they were scared, especially if the wives or girlfriends were lurking in the background. I love wolf whistles. I used to get it was fun and love the compliments now. Being older, I look different, but now they have the courage to ask me. I'm happy to be single and happy to me again as a human being. I want to touch on this big time in a minute. I pity my granddaughter who looks like me when I was young. Well,
Holy God.
I'd say she's done all right there, Francois, if you don't mind me saying so.
She's drawn the lucky card. She's drawn the, oh my God, she's gorgeous card from the pack.
Because you've really touched on something there, Francois, because people do tend to lose themselves in a relationship. And I really come to believe now that you've got to be really whole and happy and complete within yourself and love yourself before you can even entertain the idea of loving somebody else. Otherwise, it becomes I love you very much, but I trade you very much. I lack this, you lack that. Let's get together and hopefully we'll make a whole. But it doesn't work that way. Am I right on that?
And something she said in there, wolf whistles. I think it's the world's gone mad. I didn't mind having wolf whistles. You know, in the 80s, 90s. It's quite a nice compliment, really.
It's really refreshing to hear a woman say that, because most women, I know at the moment, don't like it. But I suppose there's a difference between a wolf whistle and a woman looking, I'll say it, looking hot and looking sexy and looking attractive. And she wants to look that way. So presumably she might want some positive attention. But that's very different from, sleazy white van man leaning out the and going, oh, nice,
darling.
I mean, exactly. Darling. Sorry, but, sorry to be so base. And I get that. What I was going to say, I read a lot of relationship books when I was young. John Gray, the Mars and Venus guy, a massive fan of his. All of his work.
Men are from Mars, women are from Venice.
Did it work for you?
Well, I loved he talks about 5 stages of dating and talks about a classic mistake which I've made. So stage number 1, attraction. Stage number 2, uncertainty. Stage number 3, exclusivity. Stage number 4, intimacy. Stage number 5, engagement. And he says what most people do is leap from attraction to number 4, intimacy. In other words, jump straight into bed with someone. And then when the honeymoon period wears off, that's when you kind of wish you'd gone through the other 2 stages, because there's no foundation there. And I think that's very wise, actually. I really do think that's wise. Yeah, be as naughty as you like, but just kind of slow it down a little bit.
And also, I want to answer this, and I'd like Karen to answer this. And then we got to, it was, it keeps going. Elizabeth Green is saying from New York. Oh, God. God,
sorry, Francois.
Just sounds like on the buses to me these days. God, Blakey, look at that bird. God almighty. One of my gay friends goes, what a great let me go 74. But Elizabeth was asking, I can't find the comment now, is at a certain age, is that it? Is it over?
No.
Karen.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think so there are so many attractive older women now. I mean, look at Joanna Lumley. I think she's stunning.
I had dinner with her and she was lovely.
When I first started, Sarah, she made our radio adverts. And
Has she?
Yeah, she did.
Ooh,
and she was
okay.
She really took control, and she was interested. And I mean, she's a lovely lady.
She's a very charming woman, as it so happens. I haven't quite forgiven her for the Garden Bridge fiasco and 12 million quid going down the toilet, but in the in the wake of what they ruined and just peed up the wall with COVID, it's a drop in the ocean. So there you go.
I'm just going to read this out for the benefit of those that can only hear us, not see us. Elizabeth Green, I was at a gathering on Saturday and one of my gay friends goes, what a great arse you have. It made me feel good. Now I'm 74. Fantastic.
I've had coffee with Elizabeth when she flies into London. I've had once or twice. She doesn't look 74. And if you did look 74, so what? It's not a big age these days. It's not a big age these days. It is somebody's...
So I think 60 is the new 40. People are looking so much better now, and they're taking care of themselves.
No, I agree. Because when I was growing up, 60 was old. 60 in a woman was an old lady, old and doddery. Now, it totally isn't. You're right.
I know.
60 is the
when
new
I
40.
first started,
100%.
When I first started, we couldn't help ladies over the age of 40 because, we couldn't get the men. But now, women look amazing well into their 70s.
And also, Karen, I can't discuss any of it. And if you watch it, you will understand why I can't go there. But on the Chris Rock special, how can I put this and not get thrown off the internet? He was discussing women of a more mature nature in a very positive way. I'll leave it there. Watch the special yourself, because whatever I say will be a nightmare. But you'll see. It's also, Karen, especially with mental health, which is what we're about, and well-being and all of this, and dating and finding people and romance is fantastic for your mental health. That's why I wanted you on. It comes from up here as well. If you think, well, I'm old and I'm finished, and your whole posture goes, you will be old and you can just wipe yourself out. I'll go down fighting, the hell with it. And that's all there is to it. And I will. And Neil will be the same, because that's what makes us up. But there's people. It
certainly is a mindset. But as I get older, I still love the excitement, and I still love the honeymoon stage, and I still love all the dating. I still love all that. But there is an equal balance, I suppose, of enjoying companionship and true heart connection friendship. But you don't have to be someone's lover to have a true heart connected friendship either. So I'm kind of enjoying it all. It's both and, not either or for me now.
Karen, if we want to know more about you, is it just www.sarah-eden.co.uk?
Yeah, www.sara-eden.co.uk. Or can I give an old-fashioned phone number out?
Good God, yes.
I think we can allow that. I'm going to put it on the screen for you, so do it nice and slowly for me.
Hello,
what is it?
Frobisher 7052. Frobisher 705.
Oh, Russ, do be quiet. 0207
499.
Yeah.
9626.
96 what?
26.
I can only apologise for my colleague, Karen.
My lovely
no one in all the hundreds and thousands of guests we've had, no one's ever said, "Can I be old fashioned, put my phone number up?" Right. So 0207
and can I say
9626.
And can I say, Karen, shout out to all the wonderful women, because it is International Women's Day, including you, obviously.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it is.
You're supposed to know that, Karen.
Yeah, International Women's Day. I did my whole other show on Radio Jackie this morning, bigging up women, and it was absolutely brilliant.
Radio Jackie. Yeah. Karen, we got to go because it's time for our legal eagle. The fabulous Hatti is about to come on. So thank you so much. Appreciate you being
Karen,
me.
Lovely to meet you, and I'll put that phone number.
You too.
I'll put that phone number on the screen again at the end of the show, so in case someone missed it. Pardon?
Are you single?
Are you asking?
Yeah, I didn't.
Look at that face. Of course, he's single.
You're single.
He oozes sense. Karen,
it's a long story, but I will put the number on the screen again at the end, so other people can get in touch if they happen to miss this.
Lovely, thank you. Just by the things you were saying, that's all.
Bye.
Okay. Happy International Women's Day.
You can tell he's single. Look at the state of his t-shirt, for Christ's sake. Right, thank you. Right, Karen, off you go. Neil, back you come.
Yo.
I love this part of the week. She was fun, wasn't she? This is the part of the week that I love.
Can I do a big intro? Can I do a big intro for her?
Yes, you can. Off you do the big
Ladies and gentlemen, please find the only woman that I know, and it's even better on International Women's Day, another amazing woman who has done the seeming impossible of making law and complex legal stuff, number one, understandable, and number two, fun and interesting, and all delivered with such style, sass and panache. Ladies and gentlemen, Hatti Suvari.
You got into you. You on drugs today or what?
You've got to stop that, You've really got to stop that. Honestly, I've got to come on looking serious at some point.
Yeah, well, today's the day. You can tell from my mood.
Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you. I was just thinking, is there International Men's Day?
No. In November?
No, never.
Oh, is there, Neil?
Us. Yeah. There is.
Okay. All right. I've got to write the date down and make a note. So I wish you guys a happy.
I don't even know what it is. I mean, I'm really letting the guys down there, aren't I? Letting the bros down.
I don't know.
I'll do a bit of research and see when that is.
As Ramsey we're good. As Ramsey quite rightly says, International Men's Day is the other 365 days of the year.
And that is the reason why we have to have an International Women's Day.
Yeah,
and that is the exact problem.
You can have one day.
Okay, all right. Well, you're not speaking to a feminist here, so I'll let you get away with that one.
Can I don't
think it's feminist to want to be.
Well, what does it mean?
Treated fairly.
Bullshit.
I really don't think that says it's to do with feminism. That's just common decency. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Neil, goodbye. I don't understand. International. What are you supposed to do?
I think it's just to celebrate.
I've
done a podcast with various barristers and a judge who was on a International Women's Day, and it's just to celebrate what individual women have done that has really stood out, I guess, just to recognise.
That's all you need to know. You don't need a special day.
Listen, I don't believe in special days for special things, but I'm happy to acknowledge these things,
Yeah, well, fine. If it makes people happy, Right. What is today's subject, Hatti Suvari of Get Legally Speaking?
Redundancy, your rights, and what you need to know. And if you remember last week, Neil said, well, I hope I'm not going to be made redundant during this show.
Well, you said that, but...
look, this isn't the most exciting topic of law. In fact, there aren't that many exciting topics of law, but let's just try and deliver...
I disagree, Hatti.
Oh, okay.
I actually disagree. I think we live in such a litigious world now.
We do.
That the timing of you coming on to MRS and having this weekly half-hour slot is fantastic, and it couldn't be more opposite. And I think it's great. I think
it's much needed because getting legally tangled in something would deeply affect somebody's mental health.
Right. So let's talk about
that you do it the way you do and make it so
redundancy. Off you go.
Thank you, guys. I mean, the reason why I wanted to bring this to this show is because it is being reported that to combat the sharply rising costs, a lot of businesses are going to be forced to make more redundancies or make redundancies. Perhaps they haven't yet in 23. Research shows that 44% of employers could be looking at restructuring in the next 12 months. And just a bit of statistics, just in December 22, there was 99,000 redundancies in the UK. All right. So these are big numbers. There's a lot of people, a lot of large corporates going down the redundancy route, and it's affecting people. And the reason why I want to bring this show in on this topic today is because a lot of people don't understand their rights when it comes to redundancy, and lots of employers, both large and small, get the process wrong to the detriment of the employee. So I'm going to try and make it really easy and give some headline points about what to look out for, what your employer by law has to do, where do you stand. Interestingly, the age groups that are being affected at the moment, and they were affected the most in 2022 on redundancy, was 16 to 24-year-olds and 50 to 64-year-olds. Yep. So they were the ones that were getting the chop first. Now, a lot of people... What was the
second one? 50 to...
64. So 16 to 24-year-olds and 50 to 64-year-olds.
Bless them, just as they're starting.
Absolutely.
Just as they need stability, you know. I see this with my own kids, and it's heartbreaking.
But Russ, even if it's just as you're starting, when you're 50 to 64, imagine how gut-wrenching it can be, where you think, well, I'm going to be with this employer until, you know, I actually retire. Yeah. And then you find yourself thinking, oh my God, I now need to start that employment process again, which can be quite scary for a lot of people because they haven't perhaps done it for many, many years.
Very much so. But does even such a job exist? Because for years I've believed that the days of 30 years service and a gold watch and a box of matchmakers is a thing of the past.
Forget it. Job for life, forget it.
I agree.
There's
no such thing as job security.
No, there isn't.
That used to be a term.
There's no security in life anyway.
No.
But, you know, when I was growing up, my mum and dad wanted me to be a lawyer because, well, if you got a profession, you have a job for life. So I did it, and I didn't. So there we go.
Okay. All right.
So,
well, just to understand what redundancy actually means, okay? Redundancy is when your employer lays you off on the basis that they do not have a job for you anymore. It does not mean that they need to replace you with somebody else. Okay, so here is where you legally stand and what you need to look out for if you're about to be made redundant, if you're in the process of being made redundant. So our employment laws state that your employer must discuss their process with you and go through something what's called a consultation process. They must actually label it like that. They must actually explain it to you like that. And in that, they must say what is going on, why it's going on, why you've been chosen, and give you a chance to object or refuse that redundancy. That is a really key point.
Wow.
They can't just come to you and say, really sorry, you're going to be made redundant in 2 weeks. They will be breaking the law. Your employer must, and it doesn't matter how big or small the employer is, by the way.
Right.
So that's another thing to note. Your employer must use a fair and objective way of selecting your job role to make it redundant. And they must outline this to you. Okay, because if you think, well, I've been selected unfairly, my job role clearly exists, how can it be made redundant? You are absolutely entitled to ask for more information and more clarity.
Even if you're self-employed?
Redundancy, you're not self-employed.
You can't be self-employed if they're going to make you redundant.
If you're redundant, you're employed. Do you mean if you're working for someone on a self-employed basis?
Yes, that's what I mean. Sorry.
No, that's not redundancy.
Yeah, that's not redundancy. Is when you are employed, not when you're self-employed and contracting in, perhaps.
Understood. Sorry, that's probably a dumb question.
Although, let me ask you
this.
Let me ask you this very quickly. At a certain charity where I was a trustee, I'm going to put this in very neutral terms, but I'd love your view on it. The person who was the CEO and employed insisted that they were employed on a freelance basis at their insistence. When it was clear that this person had to leave, they sued the charity.
Did they succeed?
Yes. And I was vehemently against it. And I said we should have, and I said to my fellow trustees, we should fight this because this is ludicrous, because they're not an employee.
But I guess it depends what he sued. Yeah, it depends.
I'm not going to tell you the figure that they got, but it was eye-watering. So
charities of some of the charities are some of the wealthiest businesses. One of my
it is a business.
biggest clients was a charity.
It's the business of money. I'm just curious. So Neil, I was just springing off, Hatti, from Neil's point that if you are, what about if you're self-employed? Because a lot of way that we work these days is self-employed. You invoice as, Neil Long Limited or something. What about if you've been there for 10, 15 years? And they say, sorry, Neil, we don't need you in the widget factory anymore.
If you're self-employed, my understanding is you're not directly employed. You do not have those employment rights that you do as a self-employed person that says, I'm going to, as and when I do the work, I'm going to give you an invoice for you to give back, to honor. However, if you have a contract with the employer or with the company that you're engaging with on a self-employed basis, and that contract has been breached by the business that you're doing business with, because you're doing business with them as a self-employed person, then breach of contract, of course, you go into court and you fight it out if you can't iron it out with the company that's breached the terms. That's my understanding. But we can look at different structures of employment and how that works in different ways, certainly another time. But
let's full circle back. I think you've got some stuff prepared for the show. So let's circle back to where we were. You are legally entitled to a consultation process. You have the right to object. And what that means, if I understood you right, they can't just say, oh, sorry, Neil, we're firing you in 2 weeks. We don't have to tell you why. You have the right to object, and they have to basically account for their actions.
Yes, they have to. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we come on to notice periods. Most people don't know what their notice period should be. Okay, so there's a statutory legal requirement over and above what your contract. So your contract might say something different, which is fine. That's a contract, but it can't be anything less than what the law says. So, for example, if you've been employed for up to 2 years, you must get at least 1 week's notice period if you've been employed up to 2 years, because notice periods are based on your length of service. If you, for every 2 years that you've employed after 2 years, so say, say you've been employed for 3 years, then you get an extra week's notice for every year after 2 years that you've been employed.
Okay.
So if you've been employed for 4 years, for example, you get 1 week's notice for the first 2 years, another week for year 3, another week for year 4, which is basically 4 weeks notice. 12 weeks is the maximum notice period by law that your employer needs to give you. Again, if you have an employment contract that says in the event that you're made redundant, we will give you 6 months notice, then happy days if that works for you. But there is a minimum legal requirement. Okay. I'm going to touch on very quickly redundancy pay. It's based on your age, your weekly pay, and the number of years you've been in the job. Okay. And there is a minimum sum, if you earn that much, of course, that they need to pay you per week. Okay. So statutory, for example, so by law, the statutory redundancy pay is capped at £571 per week. So you'll get for each year you've worked. And again, there's a sliding scale up to the age of 21. You'll get half a week's pay for every week of your notice. Age 22 to 40, you'll get 1 week's pay. If you're 41 and older, you get 1.5 weeks pay. And the length of service is capped at 20 years. So if you've worked somewhere for 25 years and you're due to get 20 weeks pay, it's capped at 20. Okay. That's as I said, it's not going to be the most interesting, but bullet points, right? You must be given a notice period. Okay. Even if it's that 1 week notice period, you must be given that. Your employer must have a consultation with you, labeling it a consultation. You have the right to discuss any options to move to a different position within your employer. And don't be afraid to say to your employer, look, this is what I've been doing at the moment or for the last 2 years or 5 years, but I can see there's a need across the department or in another department, or there's an opening. Can I move into that role? Would that be possible? Don't be afraid to have those discussions. You must be allowed time off of work whilst working your notice period to find a new job, to go to interviews. So if you're in your notice period and you say, I need half a day off, I've got an interview, I'd like to prepare and attend to it, your employer must give you that time off.
They can't knock off any money for that.
No, they can't knock off any money for that at all.
Okay.
And this is really important. If you leave your job before your redundancy notice period has been worked by you, then you are considered as resigning and you will forego your redundancy pay.
Ooh. So no matter how horrid, I'm being very blunt, the atmosphere is horrible. You're dreading going in because you're going to be treated like God knows what.
Hang on, that's big. Say that again, Hattie. That's going on the screen.
Important.
If you leave your job before your redundancy notice has been worked by you, so say you've been given 3 weeks redundancy notice. If you leave before that, if you say, as Russ said, the atmosphere is just horrid, I can't go in, I'm going, then you're considered to be resigning. So you will forego your redundancy pay unless it's via negotiation with your employer. So say, for example, they say you've got 3 weeks to work. After a week, you just go and say, listen, I can't be in here for the next whole 3 weeks. Will you accept, for example, I've got unpaid holiday to take. Will you accept that I leave now in lieu of my unpaid holiday? And therefore, I will take my redundancy pay as it is owed to me. Don't just get up and go.
No. This is a good point from Ramsey, and he might be saying it slightly tongue-in-cheek, but it's absolutely true. Don't copy any IP, which is
correct,
onto a USB stick. They'll be watching you. That is illegal, isn't it?
It is, because any information.
What does that mean? Sorry, what does that mean?
Okay, any information. I mean, he's meaning IP, but basically, don't go and download. Property. Yes, but
intellectual property is IP.
Anything in your office, your email, your paperwork, your documents belongs to your employer. It is not a good idea at all, because you will be breaking the law by copying information, downloading information to take it home with you. It could be a client list. It could be a copy of a contract that you think, I drafted this for this employer. I will take what I drafted so I can use it with my next employer.
No, I know someone it happened to. Someone tried to sell his whole database to a competitor. It all got quite colourful, shall we say.
Oh, goodness
gracious. So it should. It's diabolical.
Yeah, no, it's completely in the wrong.
It's a diabolical thing to do, because data is the current. Data is the current. We all know that data is the currency. What law are you breaking, by the way? Because people do that. They get it's
IP law. It's IP law. Well, we say IP law, but it's almost a criminal offence, really, Russ, because you're stealing.
You're stealing.
You're stealing, and lots of people get charged criminally for offences against their employer because it's fraud, it's stealing, lying. That's all criminal.
So really, there's another theme coming through this, which is to do with your mental attitude towards redundancy.
Yes.
And I would sum it up, and I didn't know this, Hattie, so as always, it's terrific, and you explain it so beautifully, clearly, so even I can understand it, which is my litmus test. It's this: keep your cool.
Yes.
In other words, this is a very, very emotional time. You're going to be angry. You're going to be depressed. You're going to be furious. You're going to be upset.
Potentially. Potentially. Yeah.
And I would go further. Grieving. I didn't realize this before, but people actually can go through a grief process if they lose their job.
But do you know what I've seen? Do you know what I've seen, Neil? People stay in jobs they're not happy in because they think they've got no other choice. And I have seen more often than not, well, you can go to another environment, perhaps, to do another employer where you could be happier. What I've seen more often than not is people get made redundant. They are beside themselves. But what they do next ends up being a whole lot better for them.
And that thought, actually, it's funny you say that, because I was going to say to you, good time to say it, Russ, that we should, because you mentioned that it can be difficult, depressing, thinking I've got to start again in my mid-50s or whatever, when I've spent 30 years doing this or whatever. But I would love to get people on the show who have had that experience, got through it, and then gone on to make these wonderful dreams come true and go, my God, the old cliche, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. That's not for this show.
But didn't COVID do that?
To do that in the future. COVID, I think,
COVID done that to for a lot of people. COVID made people reevaluate.
It forced our hand, didn't it? Very much so.
Yeah, and I think for the better. For the majority of people that I know that actually had to make life-changing decisions, I saw better outcomes for them. You know, one of the things that's become acceptable because of COVID is being able to work from home. I've worked from home for 17 years, whereas before COVID, if you answered a work call, you'd be hushing your pets or your children quiet, or you'd be, you know, trying to make out as if you're still in the office. Whereas now working from home is so acceptable.
Two counterpoints to that, Hattie, if I may. But you're the legal eagle, and I'm not anymore. Never was, really.
You're my legal eagle, Russ.
Oh, bless you. Thank you very much. Is this about COVID? I'm in town umpteen times a week. I was in a meeting or something, especially Soho. And you go down Regent Street and you go down Old Compton Street and the streets around there. And the number of shops which have never come back, never survived, is heartbreaking. And it looks awful because there's great swathes of London. We're not London-centric. That are dead now. And they're dead because they never bounced back from COVID. And the other thing is this, and I'd like to ask you this, because I'm going to try and see if I can phrase this correctly. Because of COVID, suddenly there was an assumption that we had the luxury of working from home because it was forced at the time. I get that. Of course I do. But it was a luxury. We're not in lockdown and COVID anymore. We never will be again. They'll never get away with it. Never. And if you're being employed by Neil Long Limited and he's got an office in New Malden, he doesn't have to say you can work from home. If he wants people in the office, he wants people in the office. That luxury has gone. It's convenient for us, but it's a luxury rather than a necessity. Would you agree with that?
I have a slightly differing view, I think, on that, Russ. You've got to look at where do you get the most output from your staff and how and in what shape and form. There will always be those people who try to milk a situation. True. I think that's a given. Yeah. However, from what I've been seeing from people that are now into this 2 days from home, 3 days from the office scenario for some, you know, where they can, it has produced happier employees that actually produce the outputs, get their work done, and haven't, you know, lessened the amount of work that they can do. An employer is well within their rights to say, we want you in the office. We need you to be in the office. That's where your place of work is. Yes, we accommodated, you know, the whole company during COVID, but an employer is well within their rights to say that. I think that a home life, work life balance is healthy for those that respect that process.
Totally agree with it.
And don't actually try to abuse the process. And, you know, you're going to get an abusive process across the board in life, aren't you? Not just for employers, but employees and, you know, government help and support and all sorts. So I'm a big champion of working from home because it's allowed me to be a mum, a wife, a carer to my elderly parents, a carer to my husband, and work full-time, full pelt. It's allowed me to be able to do that. And I did it before I was a carer to anybody. I made the decision. But then I love going into the office and working and seeing human beings.
Yes, and having there's three different strands to this. One is that employers who thought, everyone's just going to be watching Cash in the Attic and doing sod all, were shown to be completely wrong. And the stats showed that the productivity increased when people were working from home. No ifs about it, okay? Number two, it's not enshrined. So if Neil Long Limited and the chairman, Neil Long, says, I want my staff in the office so they can interact, exchange ideas, etc., he's entitled to do that. Because of the bottom line, is he's paying you.
Well, you're contracted. You're contractually going to be bound to be working from the office because it will state it in your contract.
And thirdly, and very quickly, to agree with you, Hattie, by the way, because we had a studio in Covent Garden. I could see what was going to happen. Spoke to my business partner. We shut it down and got the hell out of Dodge before it was too late. Right. Everything we do is remote. Everything. We run 2 radio stations 24 hours a day remotely. So I have no argument with you that it can work. It works beautifully.
Okay. Well, I get it. You know, and I think that for the responsible employer, there's a great place for a great employee if you can structure the work so that there is a work-life balance. For the responsible employee, again, there's a great space for you within a good employer who will respect that from you. But going back to our chat on redundancy and what you need to know, I just need to say this. There is free help and advice that is brilliant. And there's not many places where you can get free help and advice with any actually employment matter. And this is for both employers and employees, particularly if you're going through redundancy. It is ACAS. Okay. So ACAS is the Advisory Conciliation Arbitration Service.
Oh, that's what it stands for.
Website is www.acas.org.uk. They are brilliant. Even I have called them to clarify points of law regarding what an employer or an employee can and cannot do. And they have been so on point. I mean, their stats, Russ, say that one in
four... No, it's ACAS.
ACAS.
What have I done? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Once a copywriter, always a copywriter.
So ACAS are saying that this year, 1 in 5 employers are likely to make redundancies.
1 in 5?
1 in 5, yeah. So, you know, steps to take. ACAS is brilliant, and absolutely pick up the phone. It's confidential. It's free. You can you can ask them the smallest or silliest question you've got, whether you're an employer or whether you're an employee, and they will help. And there's not many free places that you can pick up. Their website is great as well.
Who funds them? It's not a charity.
They're an independent service. I believe they're government backed, but goodness only knows their actual structure. They're .org, so there must be, I think, some way or shape or
Elizabeth
form.
won't let this go. Let's deal with it very quickly. A British company employing people in their American business, I'm not going to say the company, whose rules apply there, US or UK? Or do you
American business, let's say that
it's a British company.
Yeah.
Employing people in their American business whose
it's
rules
where you're
apply.
It's where you're contractually based. So if you've got a UK contract and you're based in Timbuktu, it's a UK contract that will stand. Who put that up there? Oh my God.
Nobody I know who lives in New Malden. Let's look at this one very, very quickly.
Okay.
One of my clients had a bulletproof job in the city. Ramsey is quite a high fly. No, he's a very big high flyer. He just keeps it quiet. Last year, he upped sticks for a fantastic job in Dubai. Called me last week, see if I could help him. They gave him 3 months pay, but his Dubai presumably contract runs out on the 12th of April. It's just sponsorship is from your employer. He wants to stay out there. That's a bit of
You have to get another employer to employ you within 3 months if you're sponsored, is the UK rules. I don't know the rules in Dubai, but in the UK, if you have a sponsored employee, if you're a sponsored employee and you're going to leave, you have to get another employer to take on your sponsorship within 3 months of your date of leaving your employer.
Okay.
So that's the kind of thing. But listen, don't be afraid to negotiate with your employer. Go to ACAS, get free help and advice. Ask, what are my rights on this point, that point? Don't be afraid perhaps to say to your employer, if you can't find another job immediately, can I reduce my days until I find something else?
That's a good idea.
You know, can I do less days, less hours, but get something until I find
and they might well be open to it. But if you don't know these options are there, and some people might even be too polite to ask it, of all things.
Well, you feel it goes back to what you said, Neil. People take things on personally and they get so upset. And what you said, Russ, just slow down, try not to get emotional and think, what are my options here? You know, if you don't make suggestions to your employer, you don't know if they're willing to negotiate. Everything's up for negotiation. Doesn't matter how big the employer is. And if in doubt, and if you really feel my employer's been unfair, they've not done the right thing, that's what employment tribunals are there for. But don't run there. Try to get it resolved. ACAS can help you try and resolve matters and disputes with your employer as well. And that's why they're so good.
Fantastic information, Hattie. Brilliantly done again. Thank you.
Hattie, you have turned what was really, I thought, going to be as dry as dust.
Well, it was
Absolutely.
a bit, but...
No, it wasn't. No. Stop. Please don't do that. It was terrific and really useful. And you could see from the bounce we were getting from the audience. What's next week's subject? Do we know?
I've got a choice for you guys. Scammers, what your bank and credit card supplier has to legally use to assist.
Which one?
Okay. All right. Well, it's either that or I was going to say domestic building disputes, but we can go for bank and credit cards.
We want scammers.
Okay. How to get help
and
if
on
you've
that
been scammed.
If that's all right, Russ, sorry.
Whatever you want. On that note, Hatti Suvari, you're a genius. We love you. Thank you so
much.
Neil,
thank you, Neil. Thank you, Russ.
Neil, not so much. Bless you. We love you.
Right. And before we go very quickly, I've just got to put that phone number on the screen once more.
Which what?
I did promise that lady we had on first. I put her phone
We haven't
number on
got
the screen.
time. Bye, everybody. Sorry. Oh, there you go. Bye, gang. Thanks a lot.